Spacebird Media.
Why do so many people find solace in the crackle of a vinyl record? Let's dive in. This isn't just another vinyl podcast, it's a journey into the heart of recovery, through the universal language of music. Each week we share powerful stories of overcoming addiction and life's toughest challenges. Together, we'll uncover how the warmth of vinyl can guide us through moments of vulnerability and strength. So, drop the needle, lean in, and let the music heal. Let's get started.
This is Records in Recovery.
Welcome to another episode of Records and Recovery. I'm Ace McKay, super excited to be able to bring you not only conversations about songs, but reminders that they are the Band-Aids, sometimes the stitches that get us between seasons. And in that, I get to bring on artists as well as friends, sometimes a little bit of both, and get to hear their stories of songs that they've written that have impacted their lives or others, or songs and artists that have done the same. So as we get into each and every week, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss future episodes. I think I'm most excited about this week's episode because this is an artist that we go way back to back when it was the Yancy Not Nancy days, and that was the staple, helping also in celebrating the fact that she is now a Dove Award winner. So I have friends who have won Dove Awards. I'm very glad to say that. And she has literally taken over probably our children's hearts with some of her songs. And so we welcome to Records in Recovery, Yancy.
Hey, thanks so much. Nice to be with you today.
So I know when you and I met, it was at a time I was doing night radio. You were trying to make a name for yourself. And then the pendulum shifted from, hey, let's do this style of music to, no, let's just sing for the kids.
Yeah.
Where was that? How did God say, veil lifted?
Yeah, like what in the world, right?
Yeah.
I totally, like music was always my thing. And that was always, from the time I was a kid, like that's what I set out to do. And so started off on a real traditional CCM Christian music path and came back and forth to Nashville, learned to write songs, had some cuts, even had a number one, with Avalon, and had some success there. But I had started leading worship more and more. And then also I had an opportunity to write a theme song for a summer camp program. So here's kind of like the version that I will say is God started leading me on a journey where it was a bunch of easy yeses.
Yeah.
So as, like leading me down a little path where it wasn't this long-term commitment and like, yes, I'm going to make music for kids. It was just, okay, write this theme song for a summer camp. And a year went by. Do it again, and I did that like several years in a row, kind of had put my voice on a few songs for some friends of mine that had a ministry and were making kids albums and stuff. And so, it's like not a big commitment to just sing a couple lead vocals on somebody else's record. And I just got to this like certain point a few years later where it was like, okay, I could record a few more songs and I would have like a complete 12-song kids album.
Yeah.
By the time I take all those camp theme songs, master use. And so I was like, I can do that. And just like side story, I've grown up around children's ministry my whole life because that's what my dad did. He's always worked in churches and worked with kids and families and stuff. So was very familiar with that space, just had no idea that I would ever step into it. And so anyway, so I actually released one kids album, still not thinking it was a thing, just kind of like I could. And then the next year, just a whole bunch of stuff shifted in my life and some doors closed. And I knew I was going to go back to traveling full time and doing music. And at that point, I had been doing music literally for like all ages. Mm-hmm. And I knew I couldn't go back on the road, like doing a youth group one night and doing Sunday morning another day and doing something for kids over here. It was like, this is a little too broad. And God just it's kind of like I finally got to like this fork in the road, and it was just easy to see that he was shining a light on the path of doing things for kids and for families. And so once I got to that point, it was like, all right, I'm in. Like again, I grew up around it. So it's not something that was foreign to me. I was very familiar with, okay, what do churches need? What do parents need? Like all of that.
Yeah.
It was just shifting to let my music, completely be focused on kids and families. And so now that was like 2008. The start of 2008 was when I was officially like, all right, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. And were you a mom at that point?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. So it has nothing to do with having my own kids at all. Just, and the thing is, like, up to that point, there had been some things where it was like, I honestly had even reevaluated and like asked God, like, okay, did I miss it somewhere before? Like if you were just going to have me work at a church and be like a worship leader, worship pastor, like, why did I go to Nashville? Why did I learn to write songs? Like, why did I do some of these other things? And that season where I was like full-time at this church really was like kind of the last stop on my path of like collecting some more tools for my tool belt to then kind of do what I do. And so once I got to that point, honestly, it felt like God had taken all the pieces of my life and put them in a blender. And like, it made sense.
Yeah. I love that. This is Records in Recovery, hanging out with Yancy this week, talking about music. So as we talk about how you impact kids, I want to jump all the way back to when you were a kid. Who was that artist, or what was that album that just like, and it just ignited everything that's happened since?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be Amy Grant. I mean, if I only could name one name, for sure.
You don't have to. You can name them all.
I can name several, but
yeah.
So if I think back to, single digit days, certainly. Like all the Amy Grant albums, and especially that collection, that greatest hits, like I for sure know I was standing in my room, like mimicking and singing along to every word from that. But I mean, lots of girls as well. I mean, I was a big Cindy Morgan fan, big Margaret Becker fan, Kelly Huff as well, like lesser known, David and the Giants' daughter. So I mean, those are some of the for sure major influences on me. And then I remember that first Sheryl Crow record.
Yeah.
Changed so many things.
Well, and the thing I love, it's interesting that you mentioned Amy and Cheryl, because the thing that I always think about them, because I'm not a singer, I'm a drummer, right, is thinking, first of all, Amy was very young when she started. So thinking about the age that I was at the time and where she was, like, wow, people are that talented at that age? Is this something that I would want to pursue? Because, like, I'm ready. I'm excited. I want to do it. But then even like Sheryl Crow, she was a backup singer who then finally found her voice and said, I'm ready. This is my collection of songs. And boom, right? And I think that's what's great about music is when they come from the shadows or they come from an early age. And of course, now we live in a day and age where kids are getting signed at, 15. But right or wrong, that's not what this conversation's about. But I love that it was precedent at the time.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's got their own story, but Amy certainly was so young. I mean, I feel like she was close to 15 or something.
She may have been. I mean, I want to say that she was already married to Gary Chapman at the time.
Oh, no.
No? Okay. All right. Then there are things about her I didn't know. Good to know.
She definitely. There's a few records before that happened.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and I do remember my brother and I were big because we were in that phase where everything contemporary Christian we just hung ourselves on, and the beginning to Sing Your Praise to the Lord, there was that, even that bow down down, da 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 da. And what's funny is that's classical music, which we didn't know. But she found a way of incorporating all of that into this Rich Mullins song, And so much of it like they could do anything because there were no rules.
Yeah, they definitely were writing their own story, but it was good. I mean, it's impactful. There definitely is no uh I mean, that music certainly is a big part of my story. In fact, I'll tell you this. So the Amy and Michael did this like Friends reunion tour, I
Yeah.
guess back in like 2011. I know this because literally I was like 9 months pregnant, to the point that my sister was like, please don't go into labor. Like, I concert. And I was probably like literally within about a week of me like having my first child.
Right.
But it was also like, to me, it was the perfect, like, put a bow on my childhood of just like moving into obviously I was an adult at
Yeah.
this time, but still like just that official crossover of like, I'm going to be a mom, I'm going to have my own kids. Like, that concert, that combination, and them singing those songs, which were the old 80s ones, was like just the perfect little tie a bow on that season of life before a new one begins.
Yeah, that's great. You're hanging out with Yancy as we're on another episode of Records and Recovery. Yancy, I'm curious as you talk about songs and artists that tell your story. Take us to a time when an artist or a song hit you and it was exactly what you needed in that moment.
Yeah.
And it might have been like, behind the wheel of the car, ugly cry kind of moment, because we've all had those moments, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, we've all had those moments, and I mean, they've happened like so many times. I mean, honestly, like last Sunday, I was at church, and they were like introducing this new song that I'd never heard before, and it was even utilizing a scripture that's just kind of one of those my mom says she would like quote and sing over me like as a baby. And so I think like I've always paid attention to that scripture as it gets mentioned in life.
Yeah.
And yeah, this song was like utilizing that. And it just certainly was like, I think for the things in life that I was feeling and like weight I was carrying, it was just like, oh, this is like a message that I need to hear. But I think in particular, what comes to mind when you ask that question is, because I have led a lot of worship music at church, I think there's been many times over that I certainly have noticed and I'm thankful for just the lyrics and the truth from the Bible that a songwriter is able to put into a song that I was able to lead in worship. And sometimes it would just be like based on what my afternoon had looked like, based on a set of phone calls I had received or emails that had happened, and then now this thing that's going on in my life, like it's not that I had planned the song because of that situation, but all of a sudden that song was actually being used to encourage me and stir my faith, and if anything, like give me the faith that I needed to then be able to say, okay, I'm gonna trust God, I'm gonna keep moving forward, I'm gonna believe that this situation is gonna get resolved, it's gonna get worked out. And so I oftentimes over think about with songwriters just the gift that they give us in the things that they help us articulate just by singing along, not like, oh, I'm going to study this, I'm going to find this thing that's got this really good message. It's just like having some of those things on your playlist, having some of those things that are like, yeah, in the set list of songs that might be sung on a Sunday morning. It's just helping people articulate the things that are true, and maybe they just kind of needed a little bit of extra help to string those words or string that thought process together. And like that's such a gift that songwriters give us for sure.
Yeah. Well, and so what is it like at one of your shows? Like, I'm curious kid-wise, because I know what a VBS feels like, but I can't imagine, is it that same kind of energy, or are you trying to create worship for kids?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and there's times in life that like I do go to someone's VBS or go to their camp, and I'm like just kind of doing like the worship portion within that. And then there's days that I'm doing like a family concert, where it's a full hour-long set, maybe longer. And so within that, it's just like any concert. There's highs, there's lows, there's serious moments, there's story time, there's,
Yeah.
crowd interaction. Like it's a lot of those same components. I think the biggest thing for me, even just related to like writing music for kids, you know, because I was writing and trying to do normal music, before I started doing kids music, I'm still trying to write great music. I'm still trying to write a catchy song that's
Yeah.
got pop sensibilities. The main thing is I'm just paying attention to the vocabulary that I'm using. I'm just paying attention to maybe how repetitive something is, maybe instead of every song having verse 1, a chorus, verse 2, another chorus, bridge, like sometimes maybe 1 or 2 of those parts of songs is kind of missing. And maybe you just repeat a verse rather than singing different lyrics. Like those are some of the things I do to then craft it to actually be intentional for my audience. But yeah, I think the same is true, like even in the live setting. It's up-tempo songs, it's slower songs, like it's all the above, and the fun is kind of in the ride of all of those things.
Sure. Well, and I know one of the things I love as a songwriter is when you feel stuck in one, it's nice to go write in another style. So do you find that same pendulum for you in creativity?
Oh man, I haven't thought about it. Um, I think there's a few different things that I do. So like I write some music for kids that's definitely geared for like a younger age group, preschool, early elementary. I do some other things where like a fifth grader is my target. That all looks and sounds very normal. I'm just
Mm,
pushing a tempo sometimes, or maybe having a verse repeat, like some things like that. But all in all, the music is really technically pretty normal sounding. And so I think, and I've done an album that was like scripture lullabies, just like totally acoustic and chill. So I love Christmas music. So I think that's where some of my variety comes in, is
yeah.
just some of those different expressions.
So, and I'm curious too, because I know, when you're writing a song, a lot of times you're writing from your hurtful places. Do you feel like that you're writing from that's not the right word, a hurting inner child?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, I don't I don't think so. But I would say the difference in how I write for kids is like, I feel like when I was just writing like CCO music and for adults, it's very much more so about like being inspired by something, like as I stare out the window,
Right.
I see, it's like waiting for this grand burst of inspiration. And a lot of what I do for kids isn't necessarily just waiting for the burst of creativity. It's saying, I'm more so answering the question of like, what type of song do I think needs to exist? Like what is a message I know a church is going to teach their
Yeah.
kids throughout the year? Or sometimes I'm writing specific for like a VBS curriculum or something. So they have their theme and they have their teaching points and these talking points. And so a lot of the stuff I do for kids is actually like the answer to the problem,
Hmm.
of filling in that void and that gap and like creating that type of song. And so it's not always necessarily just like, oh, I'm inspired for there to be this, but oftentimes it's just like, I know that people want to talk about this. They want to teach this. Like parents are going to make sure their kids learn this particular concept. So how can I write a song to reinforce that?
Yeah.
Or what is something I want to talk about live to an audience? And then how can I have a song that kind of goes with that? And then the challenge sometimes is like figuring out, okay, well, how do you take that concept and then chop it up so
Yeah.
that it is something that if it's a preschool song, a preschooler can handle, and
Sure.
that's where I kind of liken it to, a family. If you grill out some steaks or something on the grill, like everyone in the family might be eating the same steak and the same piece of meat, but the bites on the plate, how small the parent might cut that food up for a younger child looks a lot different than the food that's on the dad's plate, right?
Sure.
And so it's the same meat. It's just, how do I make sure that this is palatable and appropriate for where they are in that particular phase and season of life?
Well, and it's interesting that you put it in that perspective, because I also think of it from the, okay, let's say, the death of a parent, or there's, something, that happens. And as an adult, we process it in bigger chunks, or we obviously process it through an adult mind of, okay, what do I do moving forward? And then oftentimes when we feel helpless, we maybe not remembering what it was like as a child when those kinds of things were happening, and we felt even more helpless and just thought, okay, well, this is the norm. Everyone goes through this, or everybody does this, and this is how they dealt with it. This is how I guess I'll deal with it, which oftentimes is mirrored by the people around us who are grown up taking bigger bites. And do you ever feel that pressure of, when you're writing a song, of that, man, we really need songs to help kids process these emotions, or you even hear a story of something that someone's going through?
Yeah, well, so a handful of years ago, I was attending this event that was like technically an event about kids' music, and it had been put on by a family with a what's the word when it's like a nonprofit? I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but this family had sponsored this event. Okay, so clearly this family is like wealthy if they're little family charity.
They're the endorsers,
right, is paying for this whole thing. But the guy like got up at the event, was talking about it, and he just was like, honestly, like, we've been going through some stuff this year, like his immediate family. And he said that one day his daughter, who went to a private Christian school, had come to him and asked and said, "Hey, Dad, all the songs that we sing in chapel are about being happy. And how do I go to God with my pain?" Which, I mean, I was sitting there and I was like, ding, 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 because I know firsthand, like, so many churches, like in kid space, because they want things to be fun. And so they're always looking for like the next hype song and the next thing that's going to create the fun and the wow and the ooh and the ah, and, have the whole room twirling to the side 3 times.
Yeah.
And they're oftentimes maybe a little bit more intimidated by the more serious moments.
Yeah.
And so, it was like, I heard that dad say that, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, Christian schools are guilty of that. Churches are guilty of that, of not helping kids learn how to sit at the feet of Jesus through what they're going through. And so, I mean, on that particular day, I flipped my notebook over and like immediately started writing out words to a song that's called Even When, that was much more so about just answering both through some of those different emotions that kids feel, and also just maybe some different situations that so many are going to go through. Even when that happens, choosing to go to God with it. And so I think just creating an opportunity to try to help some kids be able to articulate that for themselves. And at the same time, like, writing that truth on their hearts, because that's the thing. Music is so sticky. It's so powerful. I mean, it sticks with us. There are songs that I remember playing in my mom's minivan that I'm pretty sure was like the first model minivan that ever existed.
Right.
And, there's so many songs, and it's like, I haven't like listened to that album in decades, but like, you can say certain things, certain phrases can trigger, and immediately, like, I can sing for you that song, and I can go back in time to my memory and remember, whatever it looked like running errands around town, going to my dance class after school, like whatever, because of that memory that is attached to those songs. And so that, I think that's what excites me about what I do in writing music for kids, because sure, I want them to enjoy it right now, obviously, but that's less exciting to me than knowing that what's in this music is being planted deep down on the inside of them. And it is going to be with them when all of a sudden they're having a hard friendship at 16. It is going to be that with them as a 30-year-old if a spouse walks out, or they lose a job, or there's, a health diagnosis. Like in some of those later years and decades to come, what was in those songs is still on the inside of them. And I believe it will kind of rise up and come back to their memory to help them in those moments that they need it most. And that's what excites me about what it is I do.
Hanging out with Yancy on this week's Records and Recovery. I'm curious who's on your list when you think about artists that we as parents need to be introducing our children to. Who's on that short list for you?
Oh my goodness, that's a good question. Like kids music wise?
No, just music. Because I've always joked that I teach my kids about the Beatles and the Bible, and everything else will take care of itself. Because if they're holding into the truth of God's word, it'll come back. If they're holding on to the styles of the Beatles stuff, because there's such a genre, right? I think it's even been statistically proven that from lullabies to Beatles music is the natural progression. Like there's actually been someone who paid to have that study done, which makes my heart happy.
That is amazing.
So if they can choose whether it's mop tops or psychedelic or whatever singer songwriter, they'll find their path of the music they like. So who for you is on that path that you think kids and parents need to be having that introductory to?
Man, I've done stuff for a long time and nobody has ever asked me this, Ace. Okay, obviously the Beatles should be on the list, clearly. And I'm more of a Beatles girl than an Elvis girl, but still, I think there's something to pay attention there too, because when you go to Graceland and then you see all that he accomplished.
Yeah.
Like it really is mind blowing and like next level.
Yeah.
Even if you like spin it, to today's numbers and all of those things.
Yeah.
Like it's fantastic. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I would add like Switchfoot to that list.
And that's such a great one too, because the evolution of their music, like they got edgier with time and have kind of gone back into chill again. Like there's a lot of things there that same vein as the Beatles. There's a lot of levels to it.
Yeah. So many. And even John's solo stuff, which is, like a different thing. But John's just such an amazing songwriter. So I actually took my now 14-year-old. We went to one of John's solo shows as our Valentine's date this year. Nice. And like, he's not really that well versed in the music, but like, it's just so good and undeniable. You have a good time.
Yes.
So
that's great.
I don't know. I feel like I would add that to the list.
Those are good ones.
Yeah.
That's good. So Yancy, before I let you go, I really want to hear, what do you love about where you are with God right now?
I would say the part that I love is that I know that I'm being obedient in some areas.
Yeah.
I'm honestly like in one of those seasons where like there's just kind of a lot of question marks. There's kind of a lot of things that are not completely defined.
Yeah.
And me and my personality, I would love for the clarification to happen.
Yes.
I would love to know exactly like what all is coming. But on the flip side, I know that I have certainly like done some things and said yes to some things and stepped into some things that I'm very confident that he was leading me into. And so although I'm in this season where I'm kind of going, okay, God, make it make sense.
Yeah.
I think on the flip side, I can have peace even in that uncomfortability because I'm like, I know I'm doing what he told me to do.
That's right.
So I think that's the part that I can kind of lay my head on the pillow at night and be able to keep trusting.
Yeah, so good. Yancy's been our guest this week on Records and Recovery. It's always great to catch up. Thank you for your time and all the success that's coming as you find out new ways to introduce new ideas to kids. We look forward to it. So thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Records and Recovery is a Spacebird Media production and a part of the Thesis Radio Network. Find more episodes anywhere you listen to podcasts or at thesis.com.